Alright, so I'm recording this intro on a different day, which is why my outfit is going to change. But what we're going to do today is try and find some pond snails. Now, since I'm recording this after the fact, I know what we found. Originally, I was looking for Lymnaea stagnalis. It is called the great pond snail. It's a relatively large-sized snail, and there were some reports of it in northern Illinois. So I'm gonna go look for them in this video, and I'm not gonna find them, but I will find something else, a very similar snail, and the reports kind of mixed them up because these snails look very similar, but still a cool species. It's in the same family, it's just a different species of this pond snail. So, I might even get some to start a freshwater aquarium with these, just because, you know, fun, small little snails that don't need too much care. So we're going to go ahead, we're going to drive about, 45 minutes to this site. We're going to be looking around, see if we can find any of these more unique and rare pond snails here in northern Illinois. So, what are we going to find today? Well, let's find out. So the weather on this day when I went to look for these snails was pretty good. The fog kind of set this ominous tone to everything. Of course, there is a quarantine going on, but I decided to, go look for snails anyways. And at the same time, this location was supposed to be right next to a nuclear facility. And I didn't get to the location, so as you can see, there was kind of this blocked off section of road, and there's a small pond to the left. It's not directly at the facility, but still I figured, you know what, there really isn't a good access point. I think the way to get to this pond, you have to go to the state park that's right next to this facility and take a long road down. But maybe we'll see that sometime in the future, but I decided to move on and check some other locations. Alright, so I didn't take into consideration that this area might be closed. Now you might be thinking, well, if it's a nuclear facility, it's probably closed. But the location that I know of wasn't directly it wasn't directly in the nuclear facility, it was next to the nuclear facility. But the way that road looks, everything's kind of blocked off, so I can't even really legally park my car in the area that's kind of that divergence into the forest preserve. But that's okay because, well, theoretically it's okay. We'll see if it's okay or not, because there isn't just one single body of water in an entire area. So we're gonna go to some of these very nearby bodies of water and see if we can still find this snail in this pond that is right next to this train station here. So let's go take a look. Alright, so first area we went to was closed by the nuclear power plant. Couldn't even get in. There was a little side entrance, but I couldn't park my car anywhere. Probably would have drawn attention. The little pond down the road, the second site I went to, didn't really have anything in the water there, so nothing. Third area I went to was that bigger site where I was recording all those signs they had posted that they're closed. Fourth area I went to was down the road. It was a small forest preserve, and I figured, oh, there might be some little bodies of water here, a little stream. Maybe I can find some of these snails there. Nothing. So this trip was looking pretty pointless, but here's the thing, and I know sometimes when people are looking for snails, they go to one site, they don't find anything, and they kind of give up, but for many, many species, they should have a relatively large distribution. So just because you don't find them in one area, doesn't mean they're not going to be in another area. Now, certain species, especially stuff that's like introduced, non-native species. They might only be in one certain forest preserve or one certain area, or something that's a very niche kind of species that's restricted to a certain geographical range or some small limestone cliffs. That might be difficult to find. But for something like just a general pond snail, I feel like it's not just that one single area where I saw somebody, you know, report a sighting. That would be the only place here that has it. So what I've started doing is just going to every little body of water that I can find along the road here and checking this place out, checking that place out is my plan. I have 1/5 site that we're gonna check today. It seems promising, so let's go take a look and see if we can finally find some of these pond snails at the 5th location. All right, so here we are at some random old baseball field or something. Now there should be a body of water right past those trees. So we're gonna go take a look and see if we can finally get to an accessible site to find these pond snails. So let's go take a look. So we've arrived at the very last site here, and this is kind of a remote location, or not remote, but at least inaccessible. So what we had to do is go down this cliff. So there's some park over there, old abandoned baseball field, and we go down the muddy cliff and we end up in this pond. So this is not something most people come to. It's overgrown with, you know, grasses and fallen trees, and of course not bringing my boots. It's going to be a challenge to get there, but it's all kind of, you know, a place where nobody goes. However, when we're talking about a native species, they aren't just found only at places that have nice paved roads accessible to people. So we're going to go over down there, and this is our last chance to find these Lymnaea stagnalis. Now, going off the name stagnalis, this looks like a nice stagnant body of water for them to live in. So let's go take a look and see what we can find. All right, so first things first, we have a lot of blooms of skunk cabbage here. So this is the flower structure of the skunk cabbage plant, and it looks a lot like it would be a carnivorous plant. Kind of looks like a Sarracenia, a pitcher plant, or a Helianthera, Sarracenioides. Not carnivorous, but still it's a very cool, unique plant. And I was going to do a video kind of just about these and, you know, return to the site. But unfortunately at work, something came up. So I'll be working 10 days in a row, and I'll have to come back to this site to see if they're still in bloom. But anyways, as you can see, overgrown with grass, fallen trees everywhere. Wasn't the easiest thing to get to the edge of the water, but eventually I did. I looked down and I found a number of these snails. So the first thing I saw was an empty shell, and I got excited thinking, oh, okay, they're finally here. Then I started seeing live ones both under the water and on those grasses and on logs and rocks. And so I thought, awesome, after all this looking today, finally we found a site that has the Lymnaea stagnalis. Now, unfortunately, this is not actually Lymnaea stagnalis, and that was only apparent to me after doing further research. Now, when I got to the site, I realized, you know what, these look kind of different, but Lymnaea stagnalis, the great pond snail, is, you know, all over the place in the northern hemisphere, from Russia to Europe to North America. So I figured maybe this is just like a small population whose shell shape is a little bit different. But I kept looking and eventually found out that this is actually not the great pond snail, Lymnaea stagnalis, but it is a very similar snail called Ladislavella elodes. So here you can see it crawling around in the water. It looks very similar. It's got the black body, the triangular tentacles, and that elongated shell. The only real difference that I can see is that Lymnaea stagnalis is a little bit larger, and also the shell is not as narrow. So this one has a very narrow shell, while the Lymnaea stagnalis has that final largest section bulging out, kind of looking a little bit fatter. So, not exactly what I was looking for, and I found out that the reports of it being in Illinois are kind of historic. There haven't really been too many sightings lately, so I might have to drive further north to find the Lymnaea, up to kind of halfway up Wisconsin. So we'll keep looking, but regardless, this is still a pretty cool, unique pond snail. Not something I see too frequently in the ponds that are close by, so I don't regret the trip. Still pretty cool. Once again, Ladislavella elodes. This is the Marsh Pond snail that we found on today's trip.